I am sorry for anyone who has been hurt.
Ellen DeGeneres has been accused of suffering from a rare disease called Kuru, which is associated with cannibalism, is causing her to go blind. DeGeneres was recently photographed during an outing. In these images, she appeared visibly exhausted, and her face looked significantly aged. In particular, her eyes appeared cloudy and unfocused.
Don't you also think that she's one of those tooth and claw, get to the top? That's why she became Ellen in the first place, and that makes a lot of enemies.
She's A-type. She's an A-type personality. It's her show. It's her way or the highway, and it rubs a lot of people wrong.
Also probably maligned most of her life because she was a lesbian, had to keep it in tight.
There's some darkness in there.
Yeah, there's some darkness in there, some anger in there, you know?
A new report has started making the rounds, suggesting Ellen DeGeneres may be dealing with a serious health issue. The timing is what really caught people off guard, because it follows a run of recent posts showing her in the countryside, living a quieter life, and even raising chickens. But online, that was not the only thing people focused on. A lot of viewers quickly zeroed in on her appearance, pointing to what they described as sunken cheeks and hollow-looking eyes. That led to even more speculation, with some reports suggesting she could be losing her vision. Those claims remain unverified, but they spread fast, especially once people began connecting them to older rumors involving Jeffrey Epstein's island. According to online discussions, some sources have alleged that whatever may be happening has something to do with what was consumed there. That is where the story takes an even stranger turn. Based on what has been publicly discussed about the Epstein files, Epstein was said to have hosted multiple pizza parties, despite being described by his private chef and other close associates as someone extremely strict about food and deeply committed to a health-focused lifestyle. Reports and past accounts have suggested that his disciplined eating habits were not just personal. He was also described as pushing that same routine on people around him, including friends, girlfriends, and business associates, encouraging them to stick to foods like chickpea, salmon, tofu, and ginger. That is why some people found it so odd when references in the Epstein files appeared to include repeated mentions of pizza parties, beef jerky, and one especially unsettling reference to cream cheese. Online commentators have continued to question that contrast, though the meaning behind those references remains heavily disputed, and no official confirmation has been provided.
So I typed in cream cheese in Jeffrey Epstein's email. Let's just open up the first one. This is 2009. There are millions of very little good vegetable cream cheese. Haha, do you want veggie cream cheese tomorrow? I would go look for it now. Any good bagel place has it. I found it at 2 Jay's Lake Wort. Let's go to the next one. LOL. I don't know if cream cheese and are on the same level. It's okay, there is still enough time today. I am trying to schedule priming for 5:30 and a fuel explosion at 9:45 p.m.
That is what makes the next part so unsettling. If someone was known for eating tofu and sticking closely to whole foods, you might assume serious health concerns would never enter the picture. But according to public discussions around Jeffrey Epstein, that assumption would not necessarily hold up at all. Various reports and online commentary have pointed to Epstein allegedly having a history of gastrointestinal problems, including parasites such as whipworm and other parasitic roundworms. Some medical-related discussions even claim those organisms may have migrated through his lungs and may have contributed to him losing his sense of smell, although the full details remain part of broader public reporting, disputed claims, and speculation. Beyond that, he was also described in past accounts as allegedly having an intense and unusual interest in rare prion diseases. Online discussions have further claimed he explored ideas tied to human genetic enhancement, including storing reproductive gametes and expressing extreme transhumanist interests such as cryonics. And this is where the conversation turns especially strange. The condition Ellen DeGeneres has reportedly been linked to in recent speculation is said to involve abnormal misfolded prion proteins entering the human body. That overlap has fueled even more online theories. Some commentators have asked whether it is merely a coincidence that Ellen DeGeneres' name was allegedly said to appear in the Epstein files as Hollywood's most prolific consumer. While she has also been rumored to be dealing with an illness, some people compare to concerns Epstein was said to be fascinated by, Others took that even further, pointing to how Epstein allegedly discussed pizza repeatedly in emails, while Ellen often brought up pizza on her shows. Even so, those connections remain unverified, heavily disputed, and largely driven by online speculation rather than official confirmation.
The Epstein files reveal Ellen DeGeneres as, and I'm quoting this directly from the posts, Hollywood's most prolific cannibal, that she consumed human flesh.
I have this crazy idea that I will order pizza, and so if I do, I don't want it to go to waste. Who will eat pizza if I... Jennifer, yes? Harrison?
What happens when people start connecting all of that to what sources and former insiders have allegedly been saying about Ellen for years? That is where the conversation gets even more complicated. For someone whose public image was built so heavily around kindness, warmth, and spreading joy, several individuals who reportedly worked closely with her claim the off-camera reality may have felt very different. According to long-running industry chatter and past accounts, some people who were around her behind the scenes suggested Ellen was not quite the same person viewers believed they were seeing when the cameras were on. Those claims have remained controversial, and supporters have pushed back. But the contrast between the polished public brand and the critical behind-the-scenes stories is a big part of why this discussion keeps resurfacing online. Once that gap between image and reputation becomes part of the conversation, every old rumor starts getting pulled back into view. That is exactly what seems to be happening here. Online, people are not reacting to just one headline or one clip. They are stacking years of commentary, disputed allegations, and resurfaced references on top of each other, then treating the pattern itself like a clue. That is why the reaction has felt so intense. In the eyes of some commenters, this is no longer just about appearance, health speculation, or old associations taken in isolation. It has turned into a much bigger argument about whether the public was ever seeing the full picture at all. Critics online have framed that contrast as suspicious, while others insist the internet is forcing unrelated claims together and turning ambiguity into something darker than it may actually be. Even so, the momentum of that discussion matters. Once people believe there may be a disconnect between a celebrity's carefully managed image and the story circulating behind the scenes, they start revisiting everything through a far more skeptical lens. Innocent details get re-examined, old references take on new weight, and disputed claims that might once have stayed at the edges suddenly move much closer to the center of the conversation.
What was it like meeting Ellen, and is she a good person?
Let's just all go back to 2017, where I was the first person to call Ellen out before anyone else
You called
did.
her out?
Yeah.
What do you mean?
I called her out. I was like, Ellen's not that nice.
This was after you went on the show?
After I went on the show, and the world blew up about it and was like so mad at me about it. And then someone else said it, and then it was like, oh my God, Ellen's so nice. Yeah. Oh, okay.
That is where the discussion takes an even darker turn. In entertainment circles and across online commentary, claims have circulated for some time that Ellen's former producer, DJ Stephen Twitch, was allegedly caught up in a serious conflict involving her, with some reports even suggesting he may have threatened to reveal damaging information. Those claims remain disputed and unverified, but they continue to surface whenever older controversies around Ellen are brought back into the spotlight. Then came the tragic event that pushed those rumors into a far more unsettling frame. According to widely cited reports, on the morning of December 13, 2022, Twitch's wife, Allison Holker, urgently contacted the Los Angeles Police Department after he reportedly left their home unexpectedly without taking his car. Not long after that, hotel staff reportedly found him no longer alive at a motel in California. That sequence of events has continued to draw intense online speculation ever since. What keeps this topic alive is not just the sadness of that moment, but the way online communities tend to treat tragedy as a trigger for reopening every unresolved question at once. Once that happened, older criticism around Ellen seemed to get pulled back into circulation with fresh intensity. Posts, clips, and disputed stories that had already been floating around for years suddenly started being viewed through a much harsher lens. From there, the conversation appeared to split in two very different directions. One side argued that the internet was connecting fragments, speculation, and emotion into something far more definitive than the public record actually supports. The other side insisted that when the same names, tensions, and uneasy rumors keep resurfacing, people are bound to start asking whether those patterns may mean more than they seem. That divide is a big reason the reaction has been so charged. For some viewers, this is about whether long-running whispers around public figures deserve closer scrutiny. For others, it is a case study in how quickly suspicion can grow once grief, celebrity, and old controversy become tangled together. Either way, the discussion has clearly moved past simple gossip and into something much more loaded, where every detail gets interpreted as part of a larger story, even when the claims themselves remain disputed online.
His wife, fellow dancer Allison Holker, reportedly became concerned when she didn't hear from him by Tuesday. She went to this police precinct seeking help. About the same time, a shooting was reported at this motel. They were a happy couple who just celebrated their 9th wedding anniversary on December 10th.
Some insiders have reportedly tried to link Twitch's tragic passing to alleged tensions connected to his work with Ellen, though those claims remain unverified and heavily disputed online. In the same wave of commentary, even more serious rumors surfaced, suggesting that Ellen may have been attempting to steer Twitch toward Diddy, echoing separate online allegations that she had also exposed other people from her show to influential figures. Those allegations have not been officially confirmed, and supporters strongly reject them, but they continue to circulate in internet discussions whenever this broader controversy comes up. What makes this especially volatile is the way internet discussion tends to blur lines between suspicion, memory, and emotion. Once a tragedy becomes part of the backdrop, people often stop looking at each claim on its own and start reading everything as part of one connected narrative. That does not make the allegations true, and no official confirmation has been provided for many of the claims being repeated online. But it helps explain why the reaction has stayed so intense. In that environment, even disputed stories can start carrying more weight than they normally would. Commentators revisit old clips, past interviews, and long-running criticism, then frame those fragments as if they might point to something bigger. Supporters push back and argue that the internet is building a case out of coincidence and unresolved emotion. Critics, meanwhile, keep insisting that the repeated unease around the same circle of names is exactly why people refuse to let the story go. That is the tension sitting underneath all of this. It is not just about one rumor or one resurfaced allegation. It is about how quickly public perception can shift when a celebrity's image, a tragic passing, and years of disputed online commentary all begin collapsing into the same conversation at once.
When I have a job, then what happens is that they have to kiss me sometimes. We've discussed this many times. Right. But when I don't have a job, nobody, did you see? No! Oh my God, no! Oh no! Oh no!
Twitch worked closely with Ellen, and that detail keeps coming up in online discussions for a reason. People have pointed out that Diddy appeared on her show not just once or twice, but 17 times, making him, according to public discussion, one of the most frequent guests in the show's history. That number alone has led critics and internet commentators to revisit those appearances with a lot more scrutiny. One interview in particular keeps getting mentioned across social media. Some viewers claim the conversation included suggestive innuendo and coded language that they now connect to later rumors surrounding Diddy's private parties. Others argue that people are reading too much into a talk show exchange that, at the time, was viewed very differently. Either way, that interview has become another flashpoint in the broader online debate, even though the meaning behind those comments remains disputed and the claims remain unverified. That is why the reaction has been so difficult to contain. Once viewers start treating old footage, public friendships, and unresolved rumors as parts of the same puzzle, every familiar moment begins to look charged with new meaning. In online spaces, that kind of shift can happen fast, and once it does, the conversation rarely stays narrow for long. What follows is not just curiosity. It is a growing divide between people who say they see a pattern worth questioning, and people who see a wave of speculation building on emotion instead of proof. As those two sides keep pushing against each other, the atmosphere around Ellen, Twitch, and the wider circle being discussed becomes even more tense. And that tension matters because it changes how every resurfaced clip or disputed claim is received. Instead of being viewed on its own, each piece gets folded into a much larger internet narrative, one that supporters say is unfairly stitched together, while critics argue the repeated discomfort is exactly why the public keeps looking closer, even as no official confirmation has been provided, and the allegations remain disputed online.
Now, what time would your party start, let's say?
Like 9:30.
Really? That early?
Yeah.
I could make that.
Yeah.
But I could think of you of starting a party at like midnight. Like, what time will it go till?
That's a different type of party, though.
Uh-huh.
It'll go from like 9:30 to like maybe 3 o'clock, 3 o'clock. And then, we have the top 2 floors of the hotel.
Mm-hmm. And then it will carry on there?
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Then No, I mean the after party.
Mm-hmm. No, I know about them.
There's also that weird episode where Ellen and Diddy whispered something in between themselves, and Twitch was there to hear it shortly after that episode. Reports claim that Twitch began acting out.
Using uneaten pizza. There go my dinner plans with Portia tonight.
Yes,
wonderful pizza. All right, just y'all are all like, whatever.
Pizza at the Clooney's in Lake Como.
Yeah, that's all in Anniston. Nah, I would love you to come over for pizza, but
how was the pizza? Was it good?
There is also that widely discussed episode where Ellen and Diddy appeared to lean in and whisper to each other while Twitch was close enough to notice. That brief moment has since taken on a life of its own online, with some viewers treating it like one more clip that deserves a second look. Not long after that appearance, internet discussions began tying Twitch's later behavior to that broader circle of speculation. Some reports suggested he started acting differently, and then, after his tragic passing, those rumors only grew louder. None of that has been officially confirmed, and the claims remain heavily disputed, but people online keep bringing the sequence up. Then the conversation shifts again, because critics also connect it to Ellen's former girlfriend, Anne Hesh, whose tragic passing has been surrounded by lingering questions in some corners of the internet. According to widely reported accounts, Anne was reportedly involved in a crash into a residential home and was later said to have been trapped in the vehicle, an incident that reportedly led to her passing. What makes people focus on the timing is that this happened in 2022, not long after Anne had reportedly become more vocal about her past relationship with Ellen from years earlier. In private remarks that were later repeated publicly, Anne appeared to suggest that Ellen was not guided by the kindness she often spoke about. In her words, "If we live in love and kindness, and that is my destination and my dream for us all, I would say that was not her goal. I hope you like your money because that's why I broke up with you." After that period, Ellen ended her show and, according to public reporting, reportedly relocated to a quieter rural setting. But even that did not stop renewed media attention. Instead, it pushed more people to dig back through old stories, old criticism, and the internet's ongoing fixation on her long-rumored connection to pizza references. That is where the discussion keeps tightening. Once those older references get pulled back into the spotlight, people online do not just react to one clip or one headline. They start layering years of unresolved commentary on top of each other. A quiet lifestyle shift, a changed appearance, a tragic passing, old interviews, and disputed personal history all begin getting treated like connected signals, even when no official confirmation ties them together. The result is a very different kind of public conversation. Instead of waiting for verified information, social media often moves on mood, association, and repetition. If enough people keep pointing at the same fragments, those fragments can start to feel bigger than they actually are. Supporters continue warning that this is exactly how rumor hardens into public belief, while critics argue the repeated discomfort surrounding the same names is why so many viewers refuse to dismiss it outright. That push and pull is what gives the story its charge. It is not only about whether any single claim can be proven, it is also about how celebrity image works when trust starts slipping, and old controversies never fully disappear. In that kind of atmosphere, even ordinary footage can suddenly look loaded, and even vague references can trigger a fresh wave of interpretation. So as the conversation keeps circling Ellen, the people once close to her, and the long-running pizza speculation attached to that wider online narrative, the tone shifts again. What used to sound like scattered gossip now gets discussed by some corners of the internet, as if it might fit into a larger pattern, while others insist that pattern is being assembled out of grief, suspicion, and coincidence. That divide is exactly why the reaction has stayed so heated, and why every resurfaced detail keeps drawing people back in.
So Ellen DeGeneres got Kuru now. The disease you get from eating a human. They weren't just eating pizza at that party, huh?
According to reports now circulating online, Ellen may have recently been dealing with a serious health issue, and some sources have suggested the situation could be more severe than people first assumed. At this point, though, the details remain unclear, and no full official confirmation has been widely established, which is exactly why the speculation has grown so quickly. As more information is said to be coming together, internet discussions have also pulled the focus back to her wider social circle. Some commentators have gone as far as suggesting that her connections may not have been as distant from Jeffrey Epstein's orbit as supporters would argue, while others strongly dispute that framing, and the claims remain unverified. On top of that, a separate layer of online speculation has suggested she may have followed a similar diet plan to his, a detail that has only added more intrigue to an already heated and heavily disputed conversation. That is also why the discussion keeps spilling beyond any single headline. In online spaces, once a celebrity story starts mixing health concerns, old controversy, and resurfaced clips, people do not just react to facts, they react to the feeling that something is off. That mood can spread fast, especially when the details are incomplete, and every side is reading the same fragments in completely different ways. Some viewers argue that the repeated overlap of familiar names, strange references, and uncomfortable timing is enough to justify a closer look. Others push back just as hard, saying the internet has a habit of turning coincidence into storyline and suspicion into something that sounds more solid than it really is. That divide is what keeps the conversation active, because neither side seems willing to let the subject cool down. And once that kind of tension takes hold, even silence starts getting interpreted. A lack of clear answers does not calm the reaction. It often makes online commentary even louder. People begin revisiting interviews, appearances, and personal connections with a completely different mindset, looking for anything that they believe might support the version of the story they already accept. That is the atmosphere surrounding this situation now. It is not just about one claim or one rumor. It is about how quickly public doubt can reshape the way people see someone, especially when older controversy is already sitting in the background, waiting to be pulled forward again. With a story this layered, from the health rumors to the resurfaced clips and all the disputed online commentary around Ellen, what people make of it says a lot about how these narratives keep growing. If this breakdown gave you something to think about, like the video, subscribe for more, share it with someone following the story, drop your comment below, and see you on the next one.